You're 60 years old. Between your 401k, IRA, and a brokerage account, you've saved about $1.5 million. You don't hate your job, but you don't exactly love it either. You've run a few online calculators, and the same question keeps nagging at you. Can we really retire at 62 and stay retired? Or are we kidding ourselves? Today in the Retirement Income Lab, we're going to test that question. With $1.5 million saved, can you retire safely? Or do you need a few more years at the office? I'm Patrick Huey, certified financial planning practitioner. And let's put this scenario under the microscope.
You're entering the Retirement Income Lab with certified financial planning practitioner Patrick Huey, where your questions about retiring and staying retired get answered. No hype, no stock tips, just data, discipline, and the right decisions to help you make retirement a reality. You ready? Good. Let's get to work in the lab. Here's your host, Patrick Huey.
Welcome back to the Retirement Income Lab, where high-saving professionals turn portfolios into paychecks they can actually live on. If you're within about 5 years of retirement or just getting into it, this channel is for you. We walk through real-world retirement scenarios, stress test them, and talk about the trade-offs so you can make decisions you can live with and sleep soundly at night with. If you watch this and think, hey, that sounds a lot like us, just remember, you can schedule a Retirement Income Lab assessment with me at www.victoryindependentplanning.com/contact. I'll explain more about that at the end, but right now, let's get into the numbers. For today's lab experiment, here's our test couple, and I'll call them Mark and Lisa. They're both 60 years old. They've saved a combined $1.5 million, $1.1 million in pre-tax retirement accounts, mostly 401k, and $400,000 in a taxable brokerage account. Their home is paid off, and they'd like to retire at age 62. Right now, they spend about $90,000 per year after taxes, and they'd like to keep something close to that lifestyle. We'll assume that they'll each get Social Security with a combined benefit of roughly $4,500 per month. In our case, Lisa is the high earner and Mark makes less than half of what she does. That means Lisa is getting the maximum Social Security benefit and Mark gets around half of her full retirement benefit, discounted because they're taking Social Security early, for our purposes, age 62. So, no pensions, no big inheritances on the horizon. Sound familiar? Well, listen, even if this isn't you, stick around because there's some important information for anyone contemplating retirement income. Where do we start? Well, everything starts with spending. Mark and Lisa spend about $90,000 per year today after tax. Now, in retirement, some costs may go down. Commuting, work clothes, aggressive savings, while others may go up, travel in the early years, and eventually healthcare. To keep this simple, let's say they'd like $90,000 per year after tax in retirement in today's dollars. Okay, to get there, we'll assume they'll pay on average around 20% in combined federal and state income taxes. So if they want about $90,000 in their pocket, they're probably going to need in the neighborhood of $113,000 a year before taxes. But for today, let's just use a round planning number of $110,000 pre-tax every year. That's the lifestyle we're trying to support. The next question. How much can they safely withdraw from a $1.5 million portfolio? Now, some of you may have heard of the old 4% rule. Now, that came from looking at history and saying if you took 4% of your portfolio in year one and then increased that dollar amount with inflation, you usually made it through a 30-year retirement with a balanced portfolio without running out of money. It's a guideline, but it is not a guarantee. And there are a lot of problems with this rule of thumb, but bear with me. Because instead of pretending there's one magic number, I'm going to think of this as a range. From a $1.5 million portfolio, here's what some different starting withdrawal rates look like in year one before tax. 3% would be $45,000. 4% would be $60,000. And 4.5% would be $67,500. Now, we also have to remember they have Social Security coming at some point. So their retirement income will be a combination of Social Security plus the withdrawals from this 1.5 million. The problem is that if they retire early at 62, the portfolio may have to do a lot of the heavy lifting, especially in the first few years. To see why, let's build two scenarios. In scenario A, they will retire at 62. And in scenario B, they'll work 3 more years and retire at 65. Let's start with scenario A. They both walk away from work at the age of 62. What changes right away? Well, on the income side, nothing changes. They still want roughly $90,000 after tax or $110,000 before tax. What about expenses? Well, we said that for our purposes, they mostly net out with some going up and some going down. But there's a major exception to that when retiring at 62. They run into a healthcare problem that a lot of pre-retirees overlook. At 62, they're not yet eligible for Medicare. That doesn't happen until age 65. So they have to cover their own health insurance for 3 years. Now, that might mean COBRA, it might mean an ACA plan, or it might mean private coverage. For a couple in their early 60s, that can easily add many thousands or tens of thousands of dollars per year compared to what they pay through an employer. Right now, a 60-year-old couple buying an individual silver plan on the exchange can expect to pay roughly $1,600 to $2,000 per month, or around $19,000 to $24,000 per year in pure premiums. Just premiums, not even any out-of-pocket care. So retiring at 62 often means your expenses go up at the same time your paycheck goes away. And that is a big deal when you're choosing your retirement age. Now let's look at Social Security. If they claim benefits at age 62, they'll lock in a permanent reduction to those benefits. Now let's say together they receive around $4,500 a month at age 62. That's roughly $54,000 per year. So in their early 60s, their target pre-tax income still $110,000, and Social Security is going to provide $54,000 of that. The rest will have to come from the portfolio. $56,000 from a $1.5 million portfolio is just over 3.7%. Huh. That's not bad, right? But remember, that's before we start increasing withdrawals for inflation. They're likely looking at a 30-plus year retirement. And if inflation is over 3%, they may struggle to meet these distributions in the future. And they've drastically reduced the amount of Social Security they could get because they took it early. And finally, they're exposed to what we call sequence of returns risk. All that means is if markets are bad early, that withdrawal rate does more damage. If their first 2 years in retirement are poor and they have negative rates of return, their funding goes from 100% funded to only 78% because they're taking money out on top of the portfolio declining in value. And that is the worst case scenario for retirees. So, can they retire at 62 with 1.5 million? Yeah. But with some reservations and one major caveat. The caveat is we haven't accounted yet for the $60,000 in additional savings that they will deplete to buy health insurance. So the actual withdrawal rate will be over 5% for the first 3 years before dropping to the lower percentage. So they're trying to walk a fairly narrow path, and they need a lot of things that are out of their control to fall their way. Namely, investment returns and inflation. So this is doable, but maybe not as confident as they want to be when the paychecks stop. Now, let's change one variable. What if they keep working until age 65? Here's what changes in their favor. First, the portfolio has more time. Okay, let's assume that $1.5 million grows at a modest rate, and in 3 years, if they keep contributing, they're closer to 1.7 million or potentially more. Second, the retirement period gets shorter. Instead of potentially funding 30 plus years from 62 into their 90s, they're now funding 27 years. And that alone helps the math. Third, and this is big, at 65, they become eligible for Medicare. They no longer have to bridge 3 years of potentially expensive private coverage. We put around $60,000 back into the portfolio because we don't have to use it for health insurance. Now, since they're 65, they are much closer to the full retirement age, usually 67, for Social Security. If they wait to claim closer to their full retirement age, their combined benefit will be higher. If they get to full retirement age, it's going to be around $6,300 per month or $75,000 per year. And that is with inflation protection because there's a cost of living adjustment. With the additional portfolio value, we might decide to buy a few years of Social Security by using that extra savings for living expenses and then locking in higher Social Security benefits for life. So target pre-tax income is still about $110,000. Our Social Security is $75,000. The portfolio needs to cover that difference, which is now only $35,000. And if the portfolio is now 1.5 million after creating 2 years of income, remember we had up to 1.7 by delaying retirement. Now we take that $200,000 and buy our income for the first 2 years. Then $35,000 divided by 1.5 million is roughly 2.3%. So by working 3 more years, they have a larger portfolio, they have a lower required withdrawal rate, and they have fewer total years to fund. And they've crossed the Medicare bridge instead of paying full freight for private insurance from age 62 to 65. That's a much more comfortable experiment. So let's boil this down into a few takeaways. What have we learned in this version of the Retirement Lab? Well, first, it's not just how much have you saved. It's how much do you spend after tax and how will that change when you retire? One household can retire very comfortably on 1.5 million. Another household with different spending might struggle. What I showed you today was kind of the median. If you're trying to generate $90,000 in after-tax income and you have a portfolio of 1.5 million, on average, you should be pretty close to being able to make that happen. If not at 62, then almost certainly at age 65. Second, what we learn is that your retirement date is a very powerful lever. Okay, retiring at 62 with 1.5 million, paying for your own health insurance until Medicare, and starting Social Security early, that's tough. And it's a very different picture than working until 65, going straight onto Medicare and claiming a larger Social Security benefit. So just a few years can turn maybe into probably from a planning standpoint. Third, withdrawal rates and sequence risk matter. Starting in the low 5% range at 62 with a long retirement and high health costs up front puts you in a narrow lane. Starting closer to 3% at 65 or 67 with Medicare in place and a higher Social Security base gives you a lot more room to breathe, and dare I say, it will help you sleep that much better at night. So if you're near that $1.5 million mark, ask yourself, do I know my real spending target in retirement after taxes? Have I actually mapped out where each year of income is going to come from? And have I factored in those extra healthcare costs if I retire before 65? So the results of our experiment are positive. Yes, you can retire at age 62 with $1.5 million. But should you? That's a conversation to have outside the lab in the real world. And what I tell clients is that knowing this is powerful. It means you go to work knowing you don't have to be there. And the minute you feel like it, you can flip the switch and retire. And that makes Mondays a little easier to deal with. If you're watching this and thinking, well, that sounds like us, but I have no idea which scenario we're really in, it's exactly why I created the Retirement Income Lab assessment. I'm a fiduciary, a certified financial planning practitioner, and I'm the owner of Victory Independent Planning. And I work with high-saving professionals nationwide who are within about 5 years of retirement or who have recently retired. And in this assessment, we can map out your actual spending needs, look at how Social Security timing affects it, look at your healthcare costs, and look at how market shocks can affect your plan. You'll see what withdrawal rate your portfolio can realistically support, and you'll see how taxes can affect it. If you'd like a second opinion on whether your 1.5 million or whatever your number is enough to retire and stay retired, go to victoryindependentplanning.com/contact and schedule a short call. The link is also in the show notes. And hey, if you found this helpful, please subscribe to the Retirement Income Lab and hit the like button. It'll help us out with the algorithm so more people can see it. In our next experiment, we'll look at how much of your IRA really belongs to you and how much belongs to the IRS. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time in the VIP Retirement Income Lab.
This has been the Retirement Income Lab with certified financial planning practitioner, Patrick Huey. To stress test your own retirement income plan, visit victoryindependentplanning.com/contact and schedule your introductory call today.